Let me tell you a time that I was almost sex trafficked. At the time growing up, I thought it was called kidnapping, but it was sex trafficking. At this time, I'm 15 years old. I have a work permit. I'm excited. I'm happy to work. I got a job. I can make my own money. I don't have to be asking my mother, it was hard to even have a conversation with her. She was like a dictator. Do this, do that. Okay, let me tell you about the time. I had worked at Kmart. The store was getting ready to close. I was told to clean up my department. I cleaned up my department, and my manager said, another department needed to be cleaned up, but I needed to go over there. I ended up working overtime cleaning up that department. Ended up coming home, catching a bus. I was almost sex trafficked. My mother was very angry with me because she thought I was out hoeing. At that time, being 15, I can't believe she thought I was out hoeing because I never did that before. But she thought I was just out being with somebody, being a whore, doing all stuff that I just didn't do. That wasn't my character. I'm sorry. I want to say some things about my mother before we get into the time about it. You didn't do something she asked you to do, it was going to be some trouble. I couldn't say certain things. Even today, I don't have a relationship with her because I decided to choose peace. But let me get to the story. Let me tell you about the time. So I had came home after working overtime at Kmart, cleaning up somebody else's department, like my boss asked me to, because he said nobody can go home unless everything is cleaned up. So I did that. I came home. She yelled and screamed at me. I'm out hoeing. I'm doing this and doing that. And really, in actuality, I was out there working, doing what I asked me to do because I didn't want to lose my job. So she told me to go, when I went to work the next day, bring a note from your boss saying that you were working at. And I didn't want to ask him because I thought it was just so silly to ask somebody to write me a note to say I was there. I asked him, I never got a note from him. My mother told me, since, if you don't get that note, don't come home. You don't live here no more. So what I did was I walked the streets. I didn't know what to do, cried. I didn't know who I can call or, ask because our family is very distant from each other. I walked the street and I ended up in Hollywood, got on the bus. Up in Hollywood, I was hungry, starving. I didn't even have a jacket on when I left the house that day. I just knew I went to school, and she told me after I even went to work, I couldn't come home. So I didn't have a jacket on, and I knew I didn't have that note. I'm scared. I'm anxious. I got anxiety because I'm thinking when I come home, it's gonna be something big, yelling and screaming, and if she wanted to slap me, beat me, that's what happened. So I decided just to walk the street because there's no way I can go home because I knew the consequences of it. And I end up in Hollywood. I meet lady and she's very nice to me. Come to find out she's a prostitute. And I mention that because that's very significant. And I'll tell you the reason why I mention it. So she said, I can give you a place to stay. You can stay with me till you figure things out. I'm thinking like, wow, she's super nice to me. Maybe I can just stay there till my mom cools down. Maybe she'll forget about it. I end up staying with her and I didn't know that she stayed at a hotel. She really stayed at a hotel. She lived there. People do live at hotels. At that time, I didn't know people live at hotels. She had a boyfriend. He lived there at the time. I didn't know that either. So I ended up sleeping on the floor. They were in bed and I woke up in the middle of the night and they were having sex. He asked her, well, he didn't ask her. She asked me, did I want to join in? And then he asked me several times aggressively. She whispered in his ear. I don't know at that time what she whispered, but I'm thinking too, as I think about what happened, I think that she told me that, oh, she's for somebody else. So the next day she said, oh, we're going to meet my friend. He's going to help us work. And I said, help us work? I didn't really clue it in, didn't grasp it because at the time I'm 15, I've never experienced this before. So what happened is that she told me to stand outside the car. I'm following what she say, stay outside the car because she's been so nice to me. So I'm just standing outside the car, not knowing what's going to happen next. So she meets this guy. I'm standing outside the car. We're 20 feet away while she's talking to the guy. And he's looking at me and everything. I look at him in his face. I want to hear what they're talking about. I can hear something. What they're saying is that, oh, she's good. She's beautiful. Oh, she can work tonight. All of that. And then he told her that she did very good for this one. My point is that when I heard that, I'm sorry, I wrote a few things down. But when I heard that, I realized that I was going to be sex trafficked. And I told myself at that moment, if I do not run, the Holy Spirit said, if I, at that time, I didn't even know who the Holy Spirit said. Some said, run, get away. Because I knew if I got back in that car, I was not going to have my freedom. I was not going to have it. I ran, she ran up behind me, and she was calling my name, telling me to come back. He got in his car, he was following me. I ran through buildings and stuff. They were looking for me. I finally reached a payphone. The payphone was behind a building, a dark black building. I'll never forget it. And it was just a very dim light inside. And I dialed 911 and I told them I needed help. I explained to the officer what happened. They found a shelter for me. And at that time, the shelter was a shelter where they had nuns at. And a lady, they were very nice there. I have to say that they talked to me about God and talked about me being safe as a teenager. And then the officer told me that he's going to contact my parents and I'll be able to go home if everything is okay. I stayed the night there at the shelter. They end up calling my parents, and a different CESA officer take me to my parents' house. They leave me in the car. They talk to my parents. He comes back out and he puts his hand, he comes back telling me get out the car. And he told me that I was a spoiled, rotten brat. I had 2 parents. Most black kids don't even have that. He yelled and screamed at me, told me I'm privileged. There's no reason I was spoiled brat. I ran away. He just got in my face, very aggressive to me, yelling and screaming at me. You this, you that. And I'm thinking to myself, I've already been through enough stuff, and I was following my mother's direction. She told me not to come back there unless I had that note, and I know I didn't have that note, and I know there will be repercussions of it. A beating, a slap, yelling and screaming, a lot of stuff could have happened. What I know is that I wrote a couple things down, but I wrote some very significant things down because I wanted to share this story to help others and to spread healing across all over. What I wanted to say was that cop just yelled and screamed at me, and I'm just thinking to myself, I've been through enough. And I'm going to get to the rest of it. I'm going to talk about it throughout a bunch of videos about everything that I've been through in my life. But I realized as I got older, God has saved my life in so many times, in so many situations. I know that I have purpose on earth. And I want to use this platform to help others heal for their childhood trauma from things they have went through. And it's okay to talk about them. But it's also, this is how I feel about it. It's okay to talk about them, but you also have the courage to let it go and to heal. Not only that, Heaven, but I want to say this, that, once I got in the house and my mother was there, I went to my room and my parents, I could hear them having a conversation, and my mother never said anything to me about what happened, what she told me, and it was never discussed because I never brought it up to my parents, or brought it up to my father. She told me this. I just know that the officer also told me that I was a runaway. I left because I was upset because I didn't like something my mother said to me, which was untrue. I left because she told me to leave, and because I knew if I didn't come back with that note, I knew there was going to be a beating, something was going to happen to me. And I just got tired of the same stuff happening to me and knowing that I didn't do anything that caused it. I also want to say this. I wrote this down. A lot of people look at me as broken. My own family tried to break me, but broken crayons still color. Broken crayons still color.